Dead mobile games.
Now, when I say dead, I don't mean it in the sense of popularity where popular games like Fortnite or Minecraft that some people are saying that they're quote-unquote dead or dying, because on the contrary, they're obviously not, as both of them are still doing pretty well despite being past from their peaks anyways. But rather, what I'm talking about is the mobile games being delisted from stores that I consider to be dead since you can't download them anymore. Or can you? Because you can technically download them through using APA or application files by searching sites to get them with the risk of being sketchy since, you know, it is the internet. And while yes, downloading them using files can be considered as a piracy in the case of all-pay mobile games. But hey, as the saying goes, if buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing. Which I guess means the listed games are legit dead and downloading them using files is just dangle-grassy. Like how else are you supposed to play them if they are not available? Unless you own the game when they used to be on the store, but even then, if your device were to be broken like my old iPad and Android phone have died, then well, you have no choice but to look for files to play those old games. Despite that though, even with those set files being available, there is some that are literally unplayable even if you download them, whether they're connected to online server or they may no longer be compatible in some devices anymore. So with that in mind, what kind of mobile games and how many that are dead? Well, yeah. And there's still much more many that I didn't include in me, and it's still going on even with the games that aren't old. Like I felt heartbroken when I saw a lot of games that didn't show up on app stores, and it had me feel irrationally scared for other games that may disappear when I'm not looking. Now I could sit here and highlight the games for in-depth analysis, talking about mechanics, gameplay, storyline, game development history and all that, but that's not what I want to focus on. Like sure, maybe I'll highlight some in the future that I feel needs the attention for their own separate video. And there's some games that do likely get covered by other channels shown here that will be linked in the description or pinned comment. What I do want to focus on is the concept of deaths for these mobile games, for why and how this happens quite often, as well as what happens after death and compared to the successful games that do manage to survive, and how other deaths can learn from it. Now of course this kind of unavailable thing isn't just exclusive to mobile games, but it's one that I feel happens way too frequently compared to others in my opinion. Like the fact that Angry Birds Classic, one of the most popular mobile games, is unavailable to be played on app stores. It's insane. It's like Star Wars A New Hope movie not being available to watch at all in streaming sites, DVD Blu-ray or anywhere else except PUBG site. That isn't exactly supposed to happen. Also no, I'm not counting Red First Flight version as that's a remake, nor the Angry Birds for Automotive version, as that's intended to play in a car instead of a mobile device. Actually, better question. Why is this even a thing, Rovio? Why in the world would anyone want to play Angry Birds in a car? Is Rovio looking for car accidents? Like you telling me that you can't find a way to make a regular version compatible for Android, Rovio, and instead make a car version? Like what? Yeah, anyway, we're starting off with compatibility issues first for the causes of death. This one is the most common and most annoying for game devs to deal with. It's where you have to update an app version to be compatible for devices, since mobile devices do change a lot from time to time that needed updates for games to be playable. Like iOS and Android device requirements or 32 bits into 64 bits, since some newer devices don't really support backwards compatibility. Which is why both App Stores and Play Stores force game devs to update the games. They're basically like landlords knocking on the door to tell devs to update or else the games will be deleted. Since what's the point on keeping them if their games can be played on newer devices in their eyes? And it's a must for all devs, including small indie devs. The Play Store is more stricter for its policies, and it's why you will sometimes see that some games are still on iOS but not on Android anymore. So you can imagine this affects a lot of old mobile games that cause them to be delisted for being outdated even if their game itself is fine on its own. For example, Tiny Troopers, where the dev didn't bother to update the game thus got delisted. From what I can guess and find from Reddit, it's probably because they don't see the point point in updating the game where it had made reasonably enough money and hit a stagnation for a number of downloads reached to then move on with their life, and the same probably applies to other games as well. So when a game gets delisted for seemingly no reason or unspecified reason, most likely it's safe to assume that Apple and Google deleted them for unable to be compatible on newer devices, or devs having difficulties on trying to update the game for newer hardware, and they just decided to move on. A big sample of this is Glue Games. Guess how much of their game library has been gone today? Yep, 9 iOS games and 2 Androids. That's how bad it is. Tons of games got delisted probably because of compatibility issues, and some are old back from 2009 to 2014. If we wait their latest games, Disney Social Arena released in 2020 and Major League Baseball 2021 was recently delisted due to ending servers. Wonder what happened to them that led to these circumstances. Okay, maybe on another time for their own separate video. Speaking of ending service, this is also quite common, where the compatibility issue was for Apple and Google forcibly delete the games from stores for being outdated. Here, it's shut down by devs or publishers themselves, where they decided to stop supporting the game and the service entirely. Stagnation income or moving on can also be applied here for one of the reasons, like GameView shutting down games after months for not being financially successful than they expected, like Pine Wars, Aero Wars, Enonia, Elusia, Advena, or Punch Hero. But the other reasons can be that they come to regret putting it on app stores like Flappy Bird's Creator, for example, deleting Flappy Birds out of guild that it may be too addicting to be played and that it may cause issues to gamers. Or for receptions instances where gamers complain that the games isn't great, like with Vector 2 or Cookie Wars, thus prompted devs to delete them. Or a mismanagement case like Tiny Thief, where Rovio made a oopsie-daisy mistake of patching Tiny Thief, a previously paid app, into Freecha, where first few levels are free to play and you have to pay the rest of the levels to continue. But that ended up making people who paid previously full versions not own the rest of the levels, causing Rovio deciding to delisting the game entirely to not having to deal with it, and with how Rovio implying to willingly decided to focus on active titles instead of updating older games. I'm sure Tiny Thief would have gotten delisted one way or another pessimistic wise, even if that mistake didn't happen, which by the way, according to Rovio, these are their top priorities on app stores: 4 good or decent games, Full Blast, 2 matches, Pinball, Battle Bay, Angry Birds But for Kids, Angry Birds Classic Remake, and a car version for Android. Like bro, you guys can easily make much more money if you just keep outing these games like you had with Pet Piggies and never mind. I'm still not over that damn card version insistence, by the way, as I would like to know which employee cooked up with this idea to delete classes back in 2023 and replace it with card versions for Androids. Like, I would argue that as a financial mismanagement, because who let bro cook? Alright, we're moving on to this one. This is where the game dev studio or publisher goes bankrupt or shut down, thus by default their games goes away too, which happens to No Zombies Allowed and Zombie Cafe, for example, being delisted after Booyah got bankrupt and Beeline got shut down. Or with Trinity Games after the studio got shut down due to hackers ruining the game and making them lose money, at least speculatively, as there's barely any info on what had happened, not on Twitter, not on Facebook, nor their own site that I could find to explain why they're silent other than this video. Let's speculate that it's probably because due to hackers that have caused them to shut down, which I assume gamers witnessed hackers ruining the game firsthand. Then we get to Zombie Farm, and honestly what had happened was real dirty treatment. So at the time when it used to be on stores, it was at around $50+ million and had other spin-off games, but unfortunately Playforge, the one behind making Zombie Farm, would be declaring bankruptcy, so Playforge sold and hand over Zombie Farm to Behavior Interactive. So what did Behavior do that led Zombie Farm to its death? Straight up, Behavior decided to throw Zombie Farm into the trash by neglecting it and stop supporting the game entirely, making the game delisted from app stores, all simply because they don't see the worth in keeping up Zombie Farm on the stores and would rather focus on Dead by Daylight. There is a video on how to install the game if wanted to play it, though modern versions of iOS are unplayable due to compatibility issues, and for Android,
sorry Android users, you're out of luck at the moment.
Yeah, it was also thrown into a scenario to make some devices and Android unplayable. Zombie Farm really got the whole 3-in-1 package dirty treatment to be a dead game. Which, by the way, this unplayable state also happens to Blastron, Aero Wars 2, and No Zombies Allowed due to online service no longer function. I don't know if you all understand how a game being unplayable actually feels. Like, imagine playing a game as a kid, then all of a sudden the game's dead due to online service or incompatible issues years later after try to relieve nostalgia and you can't play your childhood game ever again. Like, that's just cruel. Especially even more so if it's a game that you paid for. If there was a choice between a game being unplayable or a game turning into pay-to-win cash grab apps, I'd much rather take the game turning into cash grab rather than the game being unplayable, because at least you will be able to play both versions of something, because no game deserves to be unplayable treatment, especially for good games. Then into copyright license inspiration. Friday the 13th Killer Puzzle is a good example of this, where the studio brought copyright license to use Jason on their game, but for limited time. So when copyright comes to expired, they are forced to delete it, and this applies to other intellectual properties on mobile games like The Amazing Spider-Man or Spider-Man Unlimited, Cartoon Network games, Lego games being removed, the list GameSoft, and yeah, that's copyright expiration. I kinda don't have anything else to say that I could think of for this. And finally, policy violation. Violating a policy aside from failing to be compatible with devices, there's some other things to consider that could get your game suspended or deleted, like illegal content, fake or artificially increased reviews, download and ratings, ads marketplace requirements, data stuff, law stuff, and so on. Whether or not they're credible is up for debate, because sometimes they may wrongly take it down some games while also letting some obvious game that probably violates the policy slide, as I'm 99% sure those cat scrap slop games fake their downloads or reviews in some sketchy way. And that's pretty much it for the causes of deaths. So what happens after death? Well, you try to come back, of course.
I thought you were dead.
My death was greatly exaggerated.
Some mobile games do still have a chance to come back in some way or another, like updating the game to be compatible with devices, hardware, and policy. Cut the Road Magic and Downwell was gone before in Play Store, but then they soon came back after some time thanks to the update from devs. Or branch out to other platforms like what Tiny Troopers and Zombie Wood did. Or making a successor to carry on the Dead Games legacy, like Love You to Bits for Tiny J, Boxing Star for Punch Hero, or Slavery Camp as a predecessor in the case of Friday the 13th Killer Puzzle. Heck, sometimes the game can come back through by some dedicated fans, like a fan game named Roblox Call of Mini Zombies, or fans trying to bring back an unplayable game into playable state like Zombie Cafe Revival or Spider-Man Unlimited. And copyright renewal is a way to bring back old licensed game if there's interest or profitable in doing so. But even after coming back, these games would still be susceptible to causes of death, like Monsters vs Zombies used to be on Surge to act as a successor from 9 Heroes, only to end up being delisted anyway due to probably stagnation in profits, and that's moving on. Or Battle Dog coming back twice but ended up being delisted anyway to poor reception and lack of popularity. And what if the games that are delisted can come back? Well, they're probably dead forever. Chances are, if the game dev or publisher have no interest on making the game return on app stores or other platforms, or if the said company is defunct and the game isn't sold to another company, or for any other reason, then it's very unlikely for them to come back at that point. Which the best gamers could do is play a similar game or fan game to the dead game as alternative. Then how do you keep surviving or at least extending mobile games lifespan? Other than adapting to app source policy and compatibility, like what Handy Games did for both free and paid versions for their old games, and copyright renewal thing, it kinda comes down to 3 things: memorable, interest, and luck in general. I say luck in general because some games is able to survive longer than others because of that still having passion and interest to update it from time to time. Like the Battle Cats could have easily followed the same fate as Battle Dog, but it didn't, because Battle Cats didn't stop updating and kept adding more content from time to time for 10 years that it eventually had its own community, while Battle Dog doesn't have community like Battle Cat, because it kinda just ended as intended by original dev. And despite their attempts for successors to expand about, those failed because of poor game design choices. So it's clear that Battle Dog did have potential to have success similar to Battle Cats, Cookie Run, or My Singing Monsters, but didn't. And likewise for probably other games that do have potential or try to keep living but didn't, because how it might wasn't meant to be sometimes. And some games just survive for being themselves, for being fun, to make themselves memorable, like what Cut the Rope is. Sometimes they may not necessarily have to keep extending one game's lifespan, and Septolat do this, so they use all the profits made from Cut the Rope to make other good quality mobile games, then just keep using Cut the Rope, as it seems to have done their best after reaching its peak and leave it to others for their time to shine. And yeah, I don't know what Taro meant by Cut the Rope is killed or dead, as it still makes around 400k downloads per month, because compared to other games, it could have easily gotten worse. Like at least it's still on app stores, or is playable, or has no casual ads, or no pay to win and stuff, because it seemed like Cut the Rope had the near best mobile game life, all things considered. Now some of you might be thinking, okay Sil, what is the point of talking about these dead games? They're just silly mobile games for kids to play, nobody will care about them. Well, guess what? A lot of people do care about these dead mobile games. There are several comments in these delisted mobile games YouTube videos that are particularly mourning that these games are gone because it was a fun childhood games to play back then. me included, since there are still fun aspects that can be found in these mobile games to enjoy and for other devs to take inspiration and learn from to apply it to their own game. Not to mention that some of these games are no longer playable, making it more high-ranking for us mobile gamers when looking back at these games. And most importantly, I want mobile games to be taken seriously again, because I certainly do not want cash grab ad slops to be face of mobile games forever. Like, imagine how would a game dev who makes good quality mobile games feel about cash grab ads slops being in app stores and seeing these slop games casually having more downloads than they could ever hope to achieve. It can be demoralizing for game devs that the slop games gains all the attentions but not their games that needed attention the most. And I imagine that there's some devs questioning on what's the point of keep updating or posting their games on app stores if some slops are gonna have more attention and profits than them. Thus they give in to stop update or delete their games, possibly losing passion on making mobile games because of lack of attention and caring. So don't think that there are no good mobile games anymore in 2020s, because there still are. It's just that the slops are preventing them from getting attention and making them feel go to waste. And that's why I'm making this video in hopes of sending awareness for what's happening to mobile games and maybe try to have both gamers and devs to give a chance again for mobile games, along with trying to preserve some of these mobile games, prevent being unplayable state, and fight back against these cash grab ad slots that's been tarnishing mobile games in the past few years. I miss the time where people used to talk about mobile games being great and them being played in YouTube videos, but now from what I can see, it's just cash grab slot videos. And I want to see that kind of era for mobile games back, and I'm sure some of you may feel the same way, but only time will tell if that kind of era may happen again. So yeah, that's the video. I hope I did this topic a little justice, even though I'm dealing with hundreds, actually no, 10,000s of delisted games. But yeah, I'm sorry if some part of the video or audio isn't good, or if I had made any mistakes, since this is my first video for this channel, so I'm not exactly experienced with script writing or voiceover. And I like to hear some feedback in the comments, and if you would like to see more about mobile games coverage videos, hit a like and subscribe. And yeah, bye.